Hey guys, it's Julie Hamilton. I would just realize we're crooked. Oh no. Do you see that? Just lean your head. Lean your head a little bit over this way. How's everybody doing? I hope you guys are doing great today. This is Julie Hamilton with Life Builders, bringing you simple tips to build a strong and healthy life on. Hey, there's Ileana, so you can see on there, so you can see who's popping up. There's my friend Sarah.
Hey.
So, anyway.
Hey, Sarah.
Say hi.
Hey, Ileana.
And there's my mom.
Hello, Ileana.
Yeah, I know. And Andrea. So it's so great to see you all. Thank you so much. You made it. Yay. There's Aunt Jackie. So I'm so glad you guys are tuning in because this is going to be a really fun day. Good morning, Tori. How are you? It's going to be a great day. And get to interview my dad today. They're in town and not very often.
Not often.
Does not happen. So when I did the interview with my mom at Christmas time, we did it at her kitchen table. So I thought, why not do it at my kitchen table today? So say hi for a second because I'm going to fix this. It's driving me crazy. It's crooked.
Okay, so
hello. Tell us about yourself. Tell us like 2 minutes about you and what you do and what your life is like.
Let me tell you, I'm just a regular guy, and I'm coming up on being 45, being married 45 years to a wonderful woman and 4 kids and 13 grandkids. So it doesn't really get much better than that.
I thought you were going to say you're coming up on being 45.
No, not yet.
Like,
I left that one behind a while back.
That's just what I should have asked is how do you stay married 45 years, right? That's a big question.
You have to ask your mom about that.
She put up with you for 45
That's
years. Right. Well, so I hope you guys are doing great. We are going to move into some questions. The first question is very serious, is what is your favorite kind of donut? If you could only eat one donut for the rest of your life.
Favorite donut is those buttermilk kind that crack open on the top and look a little heavier than the other kind.
The old fashions. Do you guys like old fashioned? Hey, there's Will Samuelson and Cindy joined. This is fun.
If they can see me?
Yeah, they can see you.
Hey there.
Good to see you
guys. I got
guys.
something to talk to you about now.
Uh-oh, Cindy or Will? So they can see you, but we can't see them, of course. We can just see that they're joining in. So those old-fashioned kind that are like thick.
Yeah.
Those are good.
Yeah.
So donuts or kolaches, which do you prefer?
Sometimes either one.
Do you?
I prefer both, actually.
Both?
Both.
Both. Eat both at the same time. Do you know what kolaches are, guys? We don't have kolaches here. They're like a...
Sort of like pigs in a blanket. They're a sausage baked into a pastry in bread.
Like a donut? Like they sell them at donut shops, but it's like a mix... Livy said it's like an egg McMuffin in a biscuit. So anyway, well, let's get going. So I wanted you to talk a little bit about, so people don't know you. I don't maybe know a lot about these questions, so I'm excited to ask you them. Tell us, like in 2 minutes, tell us about growing up. And one thing I'm really interested in is who was your greatest influence growing up? So we're going to talk to these guys because they're all watching. Okay,
well, you know, I grew up, my early years were in a small town. My family home has been in Millsap, Texas, since the 1860s.
Which is like 400 people, you guys.
Yeah, it's a very small town, but a big influence in my life. Surrounded by a lot of family, uncles and aunts, and primarily my grandmothers and grandfathers, brothers and sisters. But unfortunately, our family was pretty turbulent. A lot of difficulties. My mother and father were divorced and remarried twice. We were having to relocate from time to time because on his job he had a problem with drinking that caused a lot of difficulties. So we were back and forth out to West Texas, to Odessa, because of the circumstances and the companies he worked with and the connections. And so I grew up going back and forth between the oil field and between this little dusty peanut raising town. And ended up graduating from high school out in Odessa. And went to
Permian. You know, Friday Night Lights, right?
Yeah,
you guys remember Friday Night Lights?
I knew those guys, yeah. All those guys. They were about 2 years behind me, but I knew them.
Yeah.
And met your mama out there in college, and so the greatest influence in my life when I was growing up was actually my grandmother. My mother, she was basically taking on the role of a single mom because the father figures were in and out, or inadequate, or domineering, depends on which one we're talking about. But this real stability was my grandmother. She was her home was the refuge where we could go when everything else was going wrong.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
She was special. She's special, you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of good memories.
Yeah.
With Grandma Norman, so that was special.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I have her dresser. We were just looking at it yesterday. It's like 100 years old over something.
Yeah, I have a lot of furniture from her family. I have the library in the school was in the jelly cabinet,
right.
they call it. And so she was born in 1900. And we have the library and the chair that's set beside the library.
That was the library.
In our home, yeah.
And it's in our house, my parents' house. Isn't that fun? And I used to measure how tall I was. Like, I was really tall. The one day I could reach the top of the library, it's only like 4 feet something. And then then one day I got to like eye level with the library, and then keep growing. So I love that. And they were really special. It really shows you the kind of influence that grandparents can have on their kids, you know?
Yeah.
So.
The table we eat at, when we eat at the table, is one that I never know of not having. I don't know how far back in the family it runs, but I see a lot of ghosts of people that have gone before when I sit down and eat.
Oh.
Got my mother's problem with crying when they talk, but sorry about that.
That's not a problem. That's actually very special. I love it a lot. There's so many good special things about that. I love it. Yeah. And, I think the same would, you guys know Damien, but the same would be with Damien's life. Like, his grandparents were the ones that really also helped make a really more stable environment for him. It's so important. So if you're a grandparent out there today, just be encouraged to love those grandkids and just provide that safe place for them, because it really makes a difference in their lives and who they are when they grow up. Who are they going to grow up to be? And if they have that safe place.
Absolutely.
It's huge. So.
Everyone needs a place to run to.
Yeah, so true. All right, so through my whole life, these guys, my parents, and when I say these guys, I mean my parents, have been pouring out into the people that you might consider, I don't want to say outcasts, because that's not the right one, but the people who maybe don't fit into the normal, I don't know what the right word for it, but like when I was in kindergarten, let's say, my parents would go minister at the orphanage in the town where we lived in, Weatherford, Texas. You guys, I don't know if you've been there, but so minister to the orphans and stuff, and going on throughout our lives, they've always, and Dad has a real heart for the homeless. So even now, he goes down to the mission. Is it called the mission?
Star of Hope Mission.
Oh, Star of Hope Mission. In Houston, downtown Houston, to bless the people who are there. That's for men, right?
Yeah, that's a men's shelter.
Yeah, a men's shelter, a homeless shelter. So I wanted to ask you, the question is, what is it that derives, and he's now a pastor of a cowboy church. I've heard you describe that too, like people who maybe not fit in like a, what do you call it, a regular
traditional church.
Traditional church, are welcome there with open arms, and it's so fun. Like, they do baptisms in horse troughs, you guys, and chuck wagon, breakfast, and all kinds of stuff, like fun stuff. But it's a place where anybody can come and feel welcome. So what drives you about reaching out to that person who feels like they may not fit in society? Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, a lot of it is I'd call it spiritual motivation. Who my family was. My family were never the fancy people in town. There was a couple of people, and you might remember this, that have actually, from a spiritual side, I guess, prophesied that would be a direction of our life. And that doesn't drive me, it doesn't motivate me to that, but it's only a confirmation that this is not something that's my thought and that I developed, but it's something that the Holy Spirit has put into me. But I'll tell you, the thing that drives me most, I guess, is knowing that we've been involved with as you say, the people in the homeless missions since I was actually about 15 was the first time that I got involved with that, with a little mission called the Open Door Mission in Odessa. Brother Henry Fisher, he was an old cowboy, and he took in people, fed people out of garbage cans, He made sure people had a place because he realized, and I realized, that those people are just like me. There's not any difference except for circumstances.
That's good.
None of the people that we see in those circumstances ever set out, it was their life's goal to be homeless, to be drug addicts.
Wow, that's good.
I've run into people there that are incredibly smart. I've run into engineers and attorneys and musicians better than I would ever hope to achieve.
Wow.
And they have been taken in a type of compulsion. And sometimes it's been alcohol, sometimes drugs, sometimes gambling. It can be a lot of different things. And some of those people, through horrible tragedies, have just lost their way. But
that's true.
there's nobody that me or you or anybody else could not have fallen into that same situation.
Yeah.
And so it's very much a recovery. It's also an opportunity for me. I've been playing music a long time, and the goal of most musicians is to get out into a situation where they're doing touring and playing one night and mega concerts. And that never appealed to me because I didn't get to meet people on a repetitive basis. But at the Mission, where we go once a month for over 20 years, we've been able to go back there, and we see we see people transition from being real difficult, dirty, pathetic cases to recovery. And even one of the ministries I work with goes into providing housing for those people, transitional housing back into society. So to begin to see those people recover, and I've had some that say, well, you had a part in this, and we want to do some things that mirror what you do. That's a huge blessing and a huge motivation.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I think it's just like, there but for the grace of God go I.
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
like it could be any of us in reality,
It could be.
And that's such a good thing.
The pastor of church that I went to, I remember him making a statement. He said in Houston, there's a lot of people on the street corners that want to wash your windshield or donations. And he said the secret to dealing with those people is you never make eye contact.
Okay.
And very shortly after that, I was involved with a couple of people that they had no idea of this conversation, but they said the thing that hurts most about being homeless, about being on the street, it's not somebody being mad at you or being unhappy with you. It's the fact that they don't notice you. They don't even give you the dignity of being a human being.
Wow.
Which tied in exactly what the pastor said.
Yeah.
Don't make eye contact.
Wow.
It's things like that drive me to see what I can do to change that.
I love that. It's true. Sometimes it's awkward and you don't know what to do. I feel like that sometimes too. And I was trying to remember to, if I'm talking to somebody, to ask their name. This person has a name. This person has a family. They. And sometimes it's hard though, right? Because you feel awkward, I don't want to give you money, but I'm, I don't know, trying to make that decision. So, okay, so one thing that I wanted to ask let me ask you this when we're on this track is, what's one thing you're most proud of?
Oh, I'm most proud of my wife and my children and my grandchildren. No doubt about that. That's the things that are going to last. And be lasting and permanent, and I'm proud of who they've all become and how they're all growing. So that's the number one thing. Okay. I've done things like the ministry, and that have, not to my credit, but they've helped people get a restart. I've done one of the fun things I've done is produce an album for Blues to Joy, which was kind of a lifetime dream.
Fun.
To produce that and the way it came out.
It was good too. It was really good music.
I thought so.
Yeah, so. You guys should check it out. I don't know how we'll find it. Can they find it online?
Yeah, it's on YouTube. There's songs from it. There's a Blues to Joy channel on YouTube.
Blues to Joy, that has a 2 instead of a...
Blues to Joy. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah.
It wasn't one of your goals, but you did. It wasn't one of those things where you were talking about not wanting to be a star concert sort of person, but you got to produce an album. That's pretty fun.
Yeah, that was really, really fun. I like it. No, my motivations have not been, you asked me who I was, have not been very much on goal setting. Some people are very goal directed and they're able to set these goals and achieve them. I've never been that person.
Hmm.
My directions have been towards solving problems when I've been presented with something that needed changing
Yeah.
or needed attention, that I've been able to focus on that. And basically, that's my function as a project manager. I have a problem of getting a product delivered on time and on schedule and quality and all those things. And I approach it from that aspect. How do I solve this problem and make sure this happens? It's not a matter of what makes me look good. It's a matter of how do I solve this and make it.
Which is why you're a great team player. It's like with the Warriors, that's part of why I think they're a really good team, is because they're so selfless. Like they all like figure out how can we do this together instead of like one person with the ego trying to take on the problem.
Yeah.
You know, but if he, like on the IMDb, not IMDb, but the MBTI test, he comes out as the logistician. So he's very logical, very engineering minded. Remember we did that in Tahoe, I think.
I remember we did that.
Yeah. Okay, so I did want to ask you a couple more questions. If you guys have any questions, be sure to ask them. I can't really see because we're kind of far from the TV, but I'll come right. I'll come to it and I'll look. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. Okay, I did want to talk about, this was one main thing I wanted to talk about, because one of the things that impressed me, I don't want to make you cry again, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So
it's just me.
One of the things that I walked through, or saw my family walk through when I was a young person, a teenager, was, and I just think there's so much to be gleaned from this, is through no fault of our own, our dad's own, but some betrayal of family members, there was some really things that happened that cost him almost everything. And he ended up having to completely start over. Oh, Anna says hi. That's my sister. He ended up having to completely start really from the ground. I mean, we lost like his job. Oh, I say we. His job. Hi, sweetie. And the place that we lived and all of these things. And things were looking good. And we went from like all this looking good to a betrayal kind of in there in the middle that didn't have anything to do with you. And then we had to start at the sort of very bottom again for this thing. And I don't want to like talk about it a lot, but I did have the question about, it's like a catastrophic failure in a sense. Like if you think about like the rocket going up and blowing up, that's kind of what happened. And I want to know, for people out there they're going through a catastrophic failure, they're going through something where they've had to start all over again. I mean, my dad went from a really nice position at a place to driving a forklift. And we had 4 kids and a baby on the way. 3 kids and a baby on the way. And we had to move to a different town where it was like far away, like pretty much the other side of Texas. That's pretty far away.
Yeah.
And he started as a forklift driver again. And before that, he had worked like every position in the whole entire company we were in before, and like executive and all of that. So how did you go from, the question is, through that catastrophic event that kind of shaped our life, how does someone who's out there who is walking through a time where they feel like their life's blown up, right? They feel like the career's blown up, the finances have blown up. How do they start again and recover from something like that? Do you know what I'm saying? So what would you say to somebody out there who's going through that?
Well, to put a little more description around it, I had spent quite a bit of time in our industry and a family-owned company, and we were working on the transition of how to handle off that company within the family to the younger generation. And that kind of blew up in everybody's face, like you said, through no fault of our own, through people that decided they wanted to do other things. And it's kind of the equivalent of losing all your life savings and losing your career. That actually did happen.
Yeah.
The place that we had thought we had become very stable at disappeared. The capability to maintain that disappeared. The odd thing was, because of the ongoing litigation and court and all, I could not leave that place and still support what I needed to support. So I did. I took a job as a forklift driver, which is not anything to be unappreciated.
Right.
But certainly a big step down from where I had been, and that was okay. And when the amount of time was elapsed that we needed to complete the flanging up the things that had to be done, We moved to Dangerfield, Texas, to very humble salary. It was another company in the same coating industry that this one that I had started driving the forklift for. But the manager recognized very quickly that I knew everybody that walked in the door of the plant, all of the customers and all the clients and all of the inspectors. And so he ended up recommending to the owner of the company to put me in a business development position, which I had considerable experience at that. And so we moved to Dangerfield, where that company, small company, was headquartered, and basically did restart. And the salaries were difficult. Everybody I worked with had a second job or a second industry. They raised cattle on the side. They had something else, and so the pay was not very good. The economics in that area were very depressed because the steel mill had shut down and eliminated about 15,000 jobs.
Wow.
So wages were almost nothing, but I felt like that was the right path to stay there. There were some benefits to that. In that the original company had been using one type of technology, very focused, very narrowly.
Okay.
I did some research and some patent work on some things outside the company. But when I went to the other company, they had adopted that technology plus some others that were growing, that were emerging, and so I got to learn those technologies, more about those technologies, and train people in those technologies. I got exposed to a wider customer base and ended up negotiating some projects that got the attention of the company that is now my employer. They didn't like the fact that we negotiated a major contract that they thought that we could never win. The Lord blessed us, and we were able to win that contract. And that brought me to the place that I have presently been with since 1991, which has been a very nice job. I've been all over the world with that company, and some people would consider that glamorous. I've kind of grown past that by now. But the point was that it was a horrible time to go through to start over. Yeah. But in the starting over, I updated my knowledge of the technologies, and I learned things that could take me much, much farther.
Wow.
Had I continued in the same path with the same company, we would have been a West Texas company using an antiquated technology and a very, very small customer base. Whereas now, because we walked through that, eventually, everything that I've ever worked, every job I've ever worked, has given me something that is the base of the knowledge that I use every day. And through that progression, I now work in a very extremely narrow field that in our industry is greatly honored. There are probably no more than 50 people globally with the understanding of this technology.
Wow. And
so I have a very secure position in a very interesting field.
That's cool.
That I could have never had I not walked through the difficulties of the other job. And one of the smart things was putting the distance in from the old position so that I was not, and you were not, that was more my concern, that you and our family was not pulled into the continuing conflict of what had happened and walking through that. And we moved about 300 miles. We moved from West Texas to East Texas.
Yep.
From no trees to tall trees. I remember I told my neighbor I had 23 trees in my backyard and 17 trees in my front yard, and she looked at me like I had 3 heads.
From mesquite bushes.
Yes. And she said, "Do you count your trees?" And I said, "No, I want you to understand, I hug my trees. I want my trees to know they're appreciated." But
appreciate those trees.
We put some distance between that and the conflict.
Okay, good.
And that, I can't say that was entirely by plan, by knowledge, but that was one of the smartest things that ever happened. Nice. We took ourselves out of that personal conflict, and we're able to move forward there
I love that.
without dealing with those issues, the drama that had come up,
Yeah.
and was still continuing back there, but not where I was.
That's
not where
great.
we
Just
were.
like finding that distance. And I did a video. My video on Wednesday was actually about how when you have your back against the wall, there are actually benefits to that. And so, but you see that looking back now. But it's like, how did you strap on your boots every morning to go out and drive that forklift?
Well, it was not. What is the word? How did you do that? I did that because I had a responsibility.
Yeah.
I had a responsibility to make a life for my children and my
Sorry, guys. Sorry.
for my wife and my children. I had a big responsibility. We had 3 children, three daughters there, and Josh was on the way. And there was no opportunity to sit down and feel sorry about it. We had to move forward.
Just had to do it. And then I guess one of the most important questions I want to ask from that is, so it's so awesome. I didn't know all this stuff that he's saying. I'm hearing this all for the first time too, like how it all worked together for good. And I love this saying, like, if it's not good, then God's not finished, because it says it all works together for good.
Yeah.
And so I love seeing that. One of my questions, I just wanted to just touch on this a tiny bit, is how did you get through the emotional? How did you not be bitter about that? I mean, did it take a long time, or was it like an instant where you're like, I'm not dealing with this anymore, or was it like a process, or how did you keep your heart right in this situation?
Well, that was the process, and of course, I had your mom's support, and we talked about it a lot, and we talked about the things that were right and the things that were wrong, and trying to maintain an even temperament about it. The things that were difficult were so blatant that, there was no doubt of what was going on. My stepfather was trying to prove my mother was insane, and, all sorts of just over-the-top things. And so, it was stressful. I would not contend that it was not. But the attention to what needed to be done dominated the attention of worrying about what had happened.
Perfect.
And I learned a saying later that anything that doesn't make you bitter will make you better.
That's good, you guys. Anything that doesn't make you bitter will make you better.
Yeah.
Wow. So did you resolve not to let this make you bitter?
Yeah.
We were just like,
that was a decision that we had to make, and the difficult thing was my stepfather and I, which was the real conflict, had to continue in the same industry, in the same technical conferences, some of the same meetings. And,
that must have been awful.
I tried to respect him, and there was one time when they had us paired together in a scramble golf tournament.
Oh, no.
They had us on the same team, and I approached the guy in Oregon and I said, Joe, if you want to do this, he said, I don't have a problem with it, but I don't think the other guy is going to be happy at all.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine?
I tried to give him the space to do what he felt like he needed to do, and still not become bitter about the circumstances.
That takes so much self-control and just that, like, so much strength to take that position, because it would be so easy to just be like, That
would have been the easy way.
Yeah.
But that didn't accomplish anything.
Wow, that's good. That's good. Are you guys listening to this? This is good stuff. Jamie Shaver. Do you remember Jamie with Debbie and Chris? It's Debbie's daughter.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
She said that's good stuff. That is good stuff. All right, we're going to move on to one last question.
Okay.
So I thank you all for tuning in. I've got one last question, and I'm going to see what you guys have been saying. What do you believe that you think most people don't believe? Actually, I have 2 questions, but that's the next to last one.
What's the funny thing in our cowboy church? I think it defines a lot of who the people that go there are. If we believe in the people there believe in an honest day's pay.
Okay.
And they believe your word is your bond. And they believe your handshake is more important than your signature, more binding than your signature.
I love that.
And I think most of the world has forgotten that.
Yes. That's called integrity.
Yeah.
Wow, that's good, you guys. Did you hear that? Your handshake is more important than your signature. Like, being a man or woman of your word is so important. Wow, I love that. And an honest day's wage. So good.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you said that. Okay, and then lastly, if you have something to read, to recommend to our watchers, that something that you were going to say, this is something you could read that is kind of affected my life, what resources, one or two resources would you recommend for them to read? Or watch, or whatever?
Well, I mean, there's so many good things out there that the Lord has put in our path. Obviously, the scriptures, the Proverbs and the Psalms are guides to wisdom and action. I mean, there's a lot of other books. One of the movies that really struck me that you have seen, it was City of Joy, which is about India. It's about a mission to India, in a city in India. But I made y'all watch it. And maybe there was an ulterior motive. The ulterior motive, the communication is that people who live in circumstances of extreme poverty can still be happy and fulfilled.
Oh my gosh, that's so true.
It's not money that creates happiness. It's not success that creates happiness. It's people's determination to love those around them and to enjoy their family that makes them happy.
Right. And you see that when you travel all over the world. Like, I know you've been to Africa, we've been to Africa, and sometimes you think like, oh, they must be so sad that they're like out there singing and dancing. Like, they have way more joy than we do.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, in a sense, they're celebrating life and not working as much. And there's like so much joy. Even in Costa Rica, I found the same thing. Like, there was that concept of working to live, not living to work.
Yeah.
You know,
exactly
and it's so true. You can be so happy with less. I love it so much.
Right.
Okay, and if there's somebody out there right now who is going through a hard time, they're going through a time when they feel like their life's blown up, they're just facing, some of the people on here, they're facing like terminal diagnoses and marriages falling apart and depression and just things that are going wrong in their lives, and they're feeling discouraged. What would you say to that person who is going through kind of that blow up in their lives? Like, how would you encourage them? What would you say your message to them would be today?
Well, I guess if I thought about it in terms of somebody whose things have gone wrong and don't know where to turn, my advice would be go back and do the first things first. And that's was my story of going back to running forklifts and menial positions in our industry. When all else fails is you go back and restart, and when you do the first things first, then you have the opportunity to start in a new direction. And the Apostle Paul talks about go back and do you've gotten off track, go back and do the first things again. And normally when things are not successful in jobs and careers, you find out it's because people aren't doing the first things. They're not showing up for work. They're not showing integrity. They're not doing the basic things. For somebody that's got a terminal disease, I would say just hang on to the Lord with all your heart and all your soul. I mean, those are horrible things, but they're not the end all. Yeah. Okay, the end all is in another life.
Yes.
Okay, this is a present life, and it's not our home if we're walking with the Lord. This world is not my home. I'm only passing through. So,
I love that.
Hang on. That's my advice.
That's good advice, you guys, isn't it? Diana is on there.
Hey, Diana.
Diana. I'm going to pop over and see if I can read some of the comments and read you what people said. I can't reach it from over there. Sorry, you guys. I'm right here. Okay, let's see. Jake said he loves the Cowboy Church. And Ileana said she loved that movie, The City of Joy.
Yeah.
Aunt Jackie said, you are right. Your word is your bond. He is right. Jamie said, good stuff. I wish I could have responded to all these, but I can't. Tori said, it's wonderful. Let's see. Tori said, that might be why your dad is so compassionate and humble now. I think he's just talking about going through those hard times.
Yeah, it's a building process.
Yeah. Let's see. Sorry, guys. I know this is so right. My dad is so kind and wise. That's true. And Missy, you remember Missy and Sean from Kempner. We went to Kempner together. Missy said, we are no different from other people except for the circumstances.
That's right.
I love that. And let's see, I'm going back through. Okay, Sarah said, my mom was born in Corpus Christi, Texas, and lived there until she was 10 or 12. And then she started moving around to, I think, 3 states before ending up in Concord. Yeah, hey, you and your mom and I have something in common, except I wasn't in Corpus Christi.
Probably what you wouldn't know if you know the name Terry Clark. I think he's Calvary Chapel singer-songwriter. He's also from Corpus Christi.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Corpus is a cool place.
Yeah. Plus, he was his mother was your grandmother's roommate in college.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cute. They're roommates. Okay, so anyway, thank you all. I'm gonna just, and then Cindy said, "Oh, it's Cindy's there. Cindy and Mima are watching." So okay, hi Julie's dad. Hi there. Okay. So anyway, I just want to take a minute. This is what we do at the end: is to honor you for all that you've done, all that you've contributed, and really just. I mean, one of the things I love about my dad, guys, is you already heard that he did not have a good father figure, and he's been a fantastic dad, and he loves us so much, and so I just want to honor him for that. He didn't have somebody to say, like, this is how you be a great dad, except for your grandpa, you know, but...
Yeah, he died when I was 6.
Yeah, and so, but my dad has worked hard, worked relentlessly to love us, to provide for us, and done whatever he had to do, and strapped on those boots every morning to go out and provide. But not only that, but like really just a spiritual covering, and you know, just loved us so much. And so anyway, I want to honor you for that, because you've done a good job. Well done.
I tried.
Well, that's what we're all doing, right? All parents.
That's right.
I know, we're just trying. Anyway, and thank you so much, and thank you guys for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed it. There's so many nuggets of gold in this interview. I hope you'll go back and watch it, or share it with your friends that might be going through something really hard, and just find out how you can be a person of integrity and a person of your word. And I love what you said, going back to the first things first. So if you're stuck, go back to the first things, and that's going to help you get unstuck. All right, I love you all. Mwah. Have a wonderful weekend. We are graduating tonight, so we'll be out having fun. And may your minds be fierce, and your hearts be very strong, and your spirit be very kind today. Love you. See the little hearts and the little thumbs?
Yeah.
Yeah, they can send it to. Okay, bye.